Hello and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I've got another very special episode for you, and that is all about the 5 P's of scaling. And that's people, 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 and people. As you know, most startups begin with founders wearing all the hats, whether it's just you or a small founding team. In the early days, everyone does everything. It feels fast, messy, and like family, which has a very unique beauty to it, but it can often feel chaotic. But scaling, that's a very different game. It means making tough calls, like replacing friends with professionals, letting go of things that you used to own, and building leadership layers, not just hiring more people. Because the truth is, flashy offices don't scale businesses. Great management does. So in this episode of the Founder Files, we unpack how the best founders structure their leadership, not just teams. So from hiring A players and defining roles early, to setting up a single source of truth, which is one place where everyone can find the right information fast. So all of this means that you're not the bottleneck. And if you're figuring out how to scale without burning out or without breaking your culture, this one's for you. And if you haven't already, hit the follow button so you never miss the raw, practical lessons founders share right here on the Founder Files. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. How did you get those quality standards right in the first place, and making sure that they were able to be scalable so that you could have that kind of peace of mind where things feel a little bit less chaotic? Did it start with people? Did it start with systems? Was it a bit of both?
And it started with people because what we offer and what we deliver is all people based. It's how we make our customers feel, and it's how our staff deliver the experience to make them feel that way. So it was all based around people. Initially, in the early days, I did every single move. I went out with the teams. I put the standard in place. I then had somebody join me who came in as a secondary supervisor. And what we found was, as I started stepping out, the message and the standards started getting diluted or changed as new people joined. Because obviously I stepped out, new people came in. When we initially did it, I knew that I needed 3 different individuals to do what I did. And not because I'm Superwoman, but because I can manage 3 different elements that generally aren't found in one human being at the same time. I could manage blue collar workers, and I could motivate them to get what needed to be done in the best way possible. I could manage a high-end client and relate to them. And then I was the operationally based person. And generally you don't find all 3 in one. So what I did was I
That's
found
very
3
hard to
individuals.
produce in your kind of business.
Absolutely. So I found 3 individuals, each had those qualities, and I put them together, and I used to send them off to do moves. But then we got to the point where we were doing more than one a day, because a move takes an entire day to do. They were starting to do 2, 3, 4 moves. And as I split them, they would each bring their own elements of what they were good at to that particular job, but then all the other elements were missing. So the standardization was completely out of whack. So the next step in that was to then start standardizing what we did, to say that this
So Cheri, before we get into this standardization point, it's like I still want to go back through that decision to hire people, because I can imagine that was something that was quite a difficult decision to make. And the reason why is it's hiring one person versus 3 to do one role, which is essentially yours. I mean, take me through the process of, because I mean that must not have been an overnight call or realization. So what was the point of realizing that you needed to separate that out?
And it got to the point where I was out on jobs every single day. I couldn't do the admin in the office. I couldn't run the business. I couldn't do anything else but service the clients. So it got to the point where physically, and when there were 2 moves, I couldn't be in both places at the same time. So I had to start bringing people in. And as a small business, like all entrepreneurs, you start in your network. My closest network was family. So I started bringing family in. It was great at that time. But I found that as we went through the scale-up journey, it added more complexity to the issues and to the actual the growth part of it. But at that time, it was amazing, and they they were, like we chatted before, they had the passion, they had the value, and I taught them the skill. So they didn't have all the skill, but I could teach them different elements of the skill. So it worked in the early stages. As we started growing and I started plugging more people in that weren't family members, it then started getting exceptionally messy. So we had to come to a standardization in terms of how we hired people, what we were looking for, what we expected them to do, how we paid them. Because family members are generally the cheapest labor you can find. Very family.
Yeah, 100%. No, because look, they're doing this because they care, right? At the end of the day, but the problem is because they care, it means that it's very difficult to have hard conversations because you end up stepping on each other's toes. And it's like, remember, I'm also doing this because I love you, not just because it's like because I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
Okay, so that clarifies quite a bit of the points, is because then naturally you had the people that you could trust with that passion in your family, and that separation of roles happened already in a slightly more affordable ways, because I need you to just be able to handle that client relationship, right? And again, my assumption was it wasn't as well oiled and clear cut as you expanding it now. It's kind of the point is, I need your help. I need to handle this job. Please, can you handle that client? Right. If there's issues with the team, give me a call. But like, I kind of just got to be here. I need you to handle that. This is what we expect. And then you kind of start figuring out, and then probably making a couple like mistakes and errors, and it's like, oof, that person shouldn't be talking to that person, like that should be that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's quite a journey, and it makes me think a lot of this is another reason why the scale up journey is so hard. It's because of it's not just as simple as a delegation issue. It's about that realization of the fact that it's like, because you've gotten so good at wearing multiple hats, it's this flawed assumption that someone else can do that. And this is why so many people make the mistake of saying, I need a COO, or I need a head of operations or something like that, not realizing that person, that you are actually running 3 functions. And you need to be able to really separate what are these different things and people I'm interacting with, to be able to view that. And then the even harder decision is like, I need to fork out almost like 3 times of salaries in order to be able to just have like 20% more peace in my head on a day-to-day basis. And so what was that? Yeah, so you managed to substitute that with family to make it easy through a process instead for other people. Okay, so now I obviously interrupted you in the journey, but I really wanted to double down on that because it really is a significant challenge. And you were able to get family on board. Talk to me the points of family to strangers now and standardization, as you were going to get into.
Yep. So as we grew, we realized that as great as family was in the beginning stages, through the scale-up journey, it became hard to have family in the company because you couldn't have those hard conversations. You couldn't discipline the way you needed them to. And because they were there to help you, you couldn't up the game almost. I think that kind of explains it the best way possible.
Yeah.
Where as now we need to hold people accountable. They have to do what needs to get done because I can't manage and check in on every single job. So there's got to be paperwork that happens. They've got to do it to a certain standard. And when they're not doing it to the standard, they keep looking back at what it used to be like and why do we have to change to this? So a lot of the family issues that we've had in the business is, why do we need to change? Why do we need to grow? Can't we just stay the way we were? And the business, although unintentionally we started a scale-up journey, the business took us down that path. We couldn't actually rein it in. So we've had quite a lot of difficulties with family, and not just family, but also legacy people that started the business with me. We feel so committed to them because of their contribution in the early days, but yet they aren't able to operate in the new business. And moving from a startup to a scale up, the business changes. It becomes a completely different model. Things are done differently. Standards change, and getting those people on board to change from what was to what is and what's coming is exceptionally difficult, to the point where we've lost people along the way because their mindset, they weren't able to change the mindset.
So and that's another point where it's not just mindset, is the fact that in naturally in early stages of a business, you need Swiss Army knives, like because you are a Swiss Army knife yourself. But the point is, as you start scaling, you need specialists. And the point is, it's not only is it different skill sets, it's also different personalities. People that are very good at being generous don't want to be specialists. They're stuck in a box and it's boring. And like, I like the messiness. And it's like, and those are people that are well suited for those environments. As founders, we start the business off, and when we're less than 10 people, we have pretty much every strategic relationship that there is. Once you've got to a team of 50 people, and now you've got multiple different P&Ls and you're operating different markets, and strategically your focus area is on building in new silos at the same time, you just can't have the same level of relationships with the customers that you've had for these years that you used to. Like, you need to be able to hand these relationships over to someone else within your team that you can trust without damaging the customer experience, the relationship that they have with you, right? So how do you, like, that's what I'm just trying to understand, where the demand on your guys' time is with your customers, and how you've been able to develop that, but then also hand it over to someone within your team as well.
I think what we've done really well is we've hired well. And I think that's one of the best things that you can do, right? Is like, instead of trying to take it on yourself or feel anxious about handing over things like that, like, make sure that you're getting experts in that field that you can hand it over to. So, in terms of operations, we brought on an incredibly good chief operator, and we're very comfortable to say, cool, our supply relationships can live with him because he has the capacity and understanding and the knowledge to actually carry that on. And then very similarly, within the media space, we've got some incredible media people that we've brought on over the last sort of 6 to 8 months that understand it, that have the context, that know what our value proposition is, that already have existing relationships as well in all of those spaces. And I think that's kind of what we'd like to foster as well, is like, every new silo we'd want to create a champion for, and whether it be internal or external, but you need that person that really gets it, that really can bleed that, and live that on a daily basis.
And what we've seen is necessary, and you said it yourself, it starts with us. There'll be an opportunity through a conversation or an introduction, and you start to understand that there's an opportunity there for a partnership. And you need to then go and build out the models. You need to do market research. You need to make sure that this silo, this approach, this partnership makes a lot of sense. Then it's often getting buy-in, going proposing what that solution could look like to that other party. And often, we'll do that. And once you've got a commercial arrangement that gives commitment to the partnership, you'll have the other people kind of there, but that is what we do well, so we can create opportunities, contextualize them, and then we really are working with our teams to kind of operationalize that project, which has been mapped out. We understand what the levers are, and we know where the risks are, and that gets communicated, and then we're there for support. But ultimately, that team has what they need to go and execute that. And I think that's at that point we step away and we say, okay, what's the next opportunity? And that's kind of how we operate.
On that point around, there's the challenge that's multifaceted, right? You're obviously protecting the team from too much complexity or uncertainty, ensuring focus, maximizing growth, dealing with, ambitious, smart people. What are the challenges and quickly growing and building out the team that you're facing?
I think the first challenge is, do we really want to build a large team? I'm blown over by some of the revenue per personnel metrics that are available in there. And I think, OnlyFans is probably the Pangea for what they do. And I'm sorry that I'm mentioning OnlyFans, but they have 15 employees. And Telegram, I think, also has like 11 employees. So these are hyper-scaled companies that have been able to do it on very few employees at the time. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some kind of contextualization about pushing out services and all these types of things. And maybe OnlyFans is just so profitable that they don't care about if they're losing 3% to the payment gateway, so they won't build their own payment gateway. But it needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. But there's part of me that is in awe of businesses that are able to scale with as few people as possible. And that doesn't mean pushing our team to the ultimate limit. What it does mean, though, is being very focused about what we're doing so that we can manage the human resources in that type of way. It is about optimizing the team in terms of structure so that they are kind of well aligned in terms of the goals that they're coming out to. But then also knowing where breaking points are. And this is, one of the other things that we need to think about is if you don't have a big team, there's key individual risk that often kind of creeps in. And at the same time, there's also breaking points. So a good example of a key individual and breaking risk comes into our kind of technical support side of things. So we're very fortunate enough to work with a guy that's been with us for a hell of a long time and probably knows the product better than some of the engineers know the product. And he's built himself into a kind of key point. But as we bring on more and more customers, he can only scale in a linear manner. So where do we start thinking about employing someone else to augment him? And how quickly do you have to do that before the breaking point hits? Because that person's still going to have to upskill and get there. And you probably have to go through an iteration of getting that wrong at the same time. So there's this kind of paradigm that, we're working with, which is like, I don't see employees as a vanity metric. I kind of don't want employees as a vanity metric. I don't want to have to say that I've got 20 employees reporting to me. I want to make it as optimal as possible. But at the same time, it's about then being efficient enough to know where the breaking points are so that you can manage those breaking points before they come rather than when they come.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. And just to the point around the example of like OnlyFans and Telegram, right? This is where network effects get built in. And I think network effects are extremely difficult in B2B businesses. So the reason why those businesses are able to scale so effectively is because, one, the value prop and the niche that they have is so clear and obvious, but it's the onus is on the consumer or the customer to be able to utilize it. And then the network effect comes with the more people that use it, the more valuable it becomes. So it really, the onus of growth and scale actually happens within the market because there's very little that we need to do here. But especially in B2B, it's the customer service element that's always going to be a key part of it. And also customer onboarding. Like Apollo, right? I think there's an excellent example as a CRM prospecting software I'm currently looking at. And they've got the most amazing automated onboarding feature where it's like, where it takes you through extremely intuitive, and it's a very complex system. But I'm busy like learning how to do it. They've got all the videos, and that's how like you're able to reduce that from a team perspective. But there's still never going to be 15 or 11 people because you need to manage a learning management system now. Like, I mean, we're meant to be like a prospecting software, but we have to have an LMS, and we have to have someone that's creating content. And whenever it gets updated, we need like good like video production quality, and like we can outsource those things. But like there's just so much like a business needs to do to manage customer experience, especially in B2B realms. That's in businesses where it's as simple as a login, and I am responsible for my experience based on what I put on my profile and how I navigate the social network. Once you get that right, it's extremely scalable and easy to do so with our people. But if the onus is on the business to guide people through the quality of customer experience, you're going to need people.
Yeah, look, we're already at 15 and we're not making nearly as much money as OnlyFans. So don't get me wrong. I kind of understand that we're not going to be able to live up to that standard. But it was more just a narrative around trying to do more with not just throwing people at the problem is kind of what we look at. And one of the good examples you spoke about there now is just like the onboarding process. So historically, the onboarding process has been hyper personal. It is Chris, myself, or Jamie taking you through the API queries and how this integrates, and talking to you about whitelisting and showing you all the data that you can get there. And now the next iteration that we're going through is providing content that can hopefully, and we've got lots of written content, but humans don't like reading. So we're moving into the world of kind of video content that kind of helps out that process. And I'm not saying that there won't be the human in the middle. There definitely will. But is there a world where the person watches the video beforehand and it cuts that onboarding call from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. And those are the kind of things that we're also going to focus on rather than just play people for us.
Is now the cross-functional flow of information, right? This challenge that even though you might have it, there's still making sure that sales, marketing, operations are all talking to each other to really make a customer feel like no matter who I'm engaging with, I'm engaging with a brand that is attentive towards me as an individual. Right. So I think that's you go from a complicated problem around how do we collect this information and use it in the first place to a very complex one around how is it that we can create this consistency across functions. What have you really learned in terms of doing that well that you'd like to share with the audience?
So everybody talks about a single view of the customer for that reason, So the single view and being able to represent a single view of the organization to the customer is also very important. So what customers don't enjoy, what annoys them is when you bounce them around the organization, So, they want you as the person who represent the organization, whether you're empowered or not, to be able to assist them because they called you and you're the first person that kind of like was the front line of that company, if you like. So it's how you empower that particular individual is also very important. So for example, we go to great lengths to ensure that when we do have a complaint, you make it easy for people to give us feedback about this complaint because we've got to validate it, test what went wrong in that particular process or whatever the case may be. And then we actually built an app for a lot of our clients to use internally that all the employees can choose. And then there's workflow built in. So if Cameron's the first person that needs to respond, you'll get an in-app notification, you'll log in, you'll say, okay, yes, this problem with this particular service at that time was that one of the staff didn't come to work and we were short-staffed and therefore there was a longer waiting time, and that comment might go to your manager and then they'll decide, okay, well, this is what happened with the customer. They're complaining about waiting time, weird stuff. You give the customer that feedback, and very quickly people within the organization can respond to the customer to be able to give this like first contact resolution as quickly as possible to the customer, so they don't need to be bounced around the organization. So that's giving the organization a single view to the customer. And then what's very important in order to understand the customer better is having a single view of the customer within the organization. So the customer paid late here, okay, and therefore he was disconnected. If it's a telco service, then he was reconnected at this stage. Maybe there was a problem that we need to find out about his payment method or fix it or whatever the case may be, and not try and sell to him while we're fixing this issue because that's going to be more annoying for him. So how do you store a single version of your customer within the organization, a single version of the truth? There's a single view of the customer. That's really important. And making that info accessible to everybody who's going to be dealing, liberating the data for everybody who deals with customers is also very important. So customers want to feel valued, they want to feel special. They want to be treated differently because they are different. And if we can tap into their real motivations and understand data and interact with them in a certain way that will enhance the relationship moving forward by using the data that we have around them to make life easy for them to do business with us, I think it's a winning combination, So we're going to make it easy for customers to do business with us and think almost about what they would want to do next and help them do that because they're not experts in insurance or they're not experts in telcos. So, customers really appreciate it when they get like a communication that says, you haven't used all the features of what you're available in your mobile package. We're going to let you carry it over to the next month, but maybe this is what you should be doing, and guiding them about the utilization of the service. Otherwise, they'll eventually cancel if they're not feeling that they're getting the value. So you gotta think about how you can be proactive with your customer experience. I think that's very, very important. And we tend to be more reactive than proactive. And I think that's where there's a missed opportunity often in business is actually being able to use your data and be a data-driven organization, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, and I think the principle I like to walk away with there is it's how do you make the experience as convenient as possible for the customer, right? And that's because don't make me make a decision. Don't make me have to think hard about this. You're the expert. I've been a client of yours for however long. Right, that should be the point there, and the nature of that is it means that there's a lot of complexity that you need to take on as a business in order to solve that. Because, where should the next touch point be for this customer? What is the context around why they're coming into that touch point? And, what is it that you need to know about this customer in order to service them properly? It's a very complex way to run, but it's, if you want to have an exceptional customer experience that's scalable, you need to be able to get that right from the get-go. And I guess just a personal share in terms of what we've done, and I think what Brett did really brilliantly, and what I was a bit nervous about in the beginning, is that we've built just a couple documents, like 2 pages, right, that go along in our sales process whenever engaging with someone. So, for example, we'll start with a 30-minute curiosity call, like obligation free, there's no strings attached. And what we realized is that, like, people having this conversation with us, like the founders, besides their money, they really value their time and attention. And so having an interaction with me and be like, oh yeah, I'm happy to have that curiosity call. As the week gets busy, it's like, why is this a priority for me? And so what we've done is it's literally just a document. What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario of having this call, right? That's obligation free, even though there's nothing here. And the reason why I used to be hesitant about that is because I don't want to be at all kind of manipulative or pushing this down in terms of like, this is what you're going to get from this. I'm trying to sell you harder. But actually the point of what we authentically did is like, how do we make it as easy as possible to just make a decision so you don't have to think about this, and then make a call whether or not it is that you want this. And we've seen that improve drastically, where people like are very grateful when they enter that call with us. So yeah, I think just that principle of how is it that I can make your life more convenient? How do I meet you where you're at and give you what it is you need to know now in order to progress is part of it. Yeah, on the bottleneck problem, right? One thing I love is the fact that in many ways, you've solved this for yourself, but now you're trying to solve the bottleneck issue for your management team, which no one's ever simply described it that simply for me, but I just love that from a leadership perspective. Because like in the early stages, you're used to just being chief problem solver, right? So it's like everyone comes to me in terms of make the decision, solve the problems. But now it's like you're like the chief, like unblocker, and so give me some examples around what you're able to do now with the freedom that you have to really help your management team.
So it's funny when you catch, I guess, different founders at different points. So you asked me a couple months ago, like building out Dis-Chem Life. I mean, that was just all hands on deck, like build, like get stuck in where I needed to. And post launch, it has given me a bit more time. And what I want to do is in leadership, my role is twofold. My role is to inspire my team, that they can walk through walls, that they can achieve anything that they thought they could and more. That is number one. That is leadership, right? The second part of leadership is for me to make their lives easier. That is my sole role. And what I can do now, and because I have time, I never had the time 6 months ago to send out the email and actually start thinking about all the other guys. And I did this last night. And once I'd be interesting to see what they come back with. But it's now for me to go implement that. And, I don't know if you've seen Elon Musk, like 5 steps of, how to make, business, I guess better. And the one is, kind of remove the steps you don't need, remove the bottlenecks, remove those, delete those steps. And that for me is going to be 2 things that I'm very passionate about is automating. So that's how I can help them. Their processes that they're doing manually, I will look to provide resources to speed that up, to make them more efficient. That's one. And any process, and I'm telling you, there's a lot in the business, and sign off, or do this, or, various levels of check. Like that's what I want to get into and remove those if we don't need them. And that, along with driving kind of, the vision, is going to be my major focus over the next maybe few weeks, just to make their lives easier. And as they start, and for me, there's no such thing as a silver bullet in any business. It's incremental changes which lead to the big bang. So if I can figure up in one department 3% share and 3% there, and 2% share and 2%, I lost track, I think it's about 10% altogether, and then 20% somewhere else, like that adds up. And then people start like, wow, I've got all this extra time, and that is my role. And yes, to still solve all the problems. And they come to me again. Now I ask the guys when they come with the problem, I push them a little bit to get to a solution, because they're just saying no. I'm like, okay, but how? And we eventually get there. But yeah, so for me, it's just to make their life easier. And but at the same time, in the founding story and people listening, it depends where you're on the thing. If you're like literally in survival, or you need to get your hands dirty, you're not thinking about all the other teams. You're literally just thinking of that and how do I bring the best product, or different stages. But fortunately, I do have the time now, and I'm going to invest it back in my people to let them succeed.
Amazing, man. I love the way that you also describe that, because I've had a couple conversations with people about the term founder mode that's popped up in the past year or so, the past couple of months. And actually can't remember when that post was, but the point was you just spoken about that practically what it looks like in action, right? Like that's a very unique thing about being the founder rather than the CEO. Is it's like I'm free up now, and it's like how do I automate? How do I tweak? Where's the percentage improvements? And it's like let me go collaborate with people, unlock things. But it's also like what you've learned from a skill set now is about the fact that you've learned the power of what it means to actually hand over and empower other people to do it. So you'll get in, you'll like jump over someone. And it's like you'll tinker and fool around, but then it's like, okay, cool, but I'm going to let you, what do you think? What are you going to run with this? And then duck. And like, that's, I can imagine you having a lot of fun.
Oh, I was about to say, I'm really enjoying where we are because it's such a creative time. So I can come up with the craziest ideas, build like, even actually I'll build like a little model or I'll build this and I don't have the time to finish it off, but like there's so many different cool areas to solve and we're in a big growth. It's a really, really nice place to be. And I am really enjoying it. And that's kind of rare because my story is like almost in its 6th year, and you build and then, we grow, houses grow. And then now we're growing again through, Dis-Chem because we waited for that. And it almost feels kind of like the beginning, but with a lot more kind of experience. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. So this is what it's all about. This is what we all work so hard towards is get that. So enjoy it while you have it, because you will continue to do so. Because like I even spoke to Yaron Assabi, who is the founder of Digital Solutions Group. I mean, like 1,200 people and a ramp up to like 1,500 people soon. He also feels like he's only just getting started in his scale, but he's having the time of his life. All right, so love it for you, man. I hope you can continue to maintain that.
And that's just one thing on that. It's very important for the business. When your leader is enjoying it, it filters through. When your leader is, it's people can feel the energy. So very important.
Totally. Quick one. While I have your attention, I've built something for you. It's called the Founder Roadmap, and it's designed to give you sharp clarity on where your business is leaking time, energy, and money, and exactly what to do about it. In just 15 minutes, you'll see how scale ready your business really is, where you're stuck, where you're leaking cash, and what to focus on next. Now, this isn't some generic theoretical download. It's built from everything I've learned across 120 plus episodes of the Founder Files and working directly with over 150 founders. This is totally free. There's no sign up and there's no email request. Now, what's the catch? Well, there isn't one. I'm not doing this to market to you. I'm doing this because you've invested your time into the Founder Files. And because I'm so grateful for that, I wanted to invest my learnings back into you. So hopefully you can take some of the guesswork out of growth and build a business that doesn't fall apart the moment that you take a holiday. So if you're serious about building something sustainable, not just busy, then this is the next best 15 minutes you'll probably spend on your business. So hit the link in the episode description and give the Founder Roadmap a go to get some of your time and money back. So Felix, I mean, like if you mentioned this ratio around, it's coming 50% referrals, 50% search, which is absolutely incredible. But what I want to know now is how you've gotten your own sales engine right, and to be able to get to a position where you have the earned luxury of being able to choose the clients that you want to work with. You're able to say no now. But obviously, it's one of those critical moments where when celebrate the success, but obviously one mustn't get complacent now. So how is it that you're managing that sales engine? How did you get it to the point where it's able to sustain the business so well?
Right. So 50% search, 50% referrals. That's kind of the loose, high buckets, but those will kind of get siloed into deeper kind of sub buckets. So within search, you'll have organic search versus paid search. Within referrals, you'll have like partnerships and existing clients. So there are kind of sub buckets within that. But the way that we scaled was to actually ensure that there was dedicated people whose roles were to sell. And so that revolved creating an actual sales process, having a proper CRM. So we use an amazing sales coach, Outsell Sales, or Richard Walton. And when I realized that sales needed to be something that we needed to have on lock that we needed to ensure that it was predictable and scalable. He coached me through that to build a sales team. So that's what we've been focusing on the last 2.5 years. And so we actually recently acquired another agency to bring in additional resources, but primarily the founder of that agency, because what we sell is complex, and the complexity of it requires a type of salesperson who is actually almost an entrepreneur themselves.
Are you also selling to entrepreneurs?
We're selling to entrepreneurs, but we also need to be able to therefore put ourselves immediately within 15 minutes of a conversation, we have to be able to kind of at a high level fully understand how their business works, what are the driving forces for that, and then put together a solution to solve a problem that they have in some kind of marketing channel. And for me, I believe that the only real person that can solve that quickly is another founder type.
Why?
Because of the complexity of it, it requires, in my opinion, another founder type person or another person who's run a business, who really understands all the nuances. Maybe one day I'll hopefully solve, and I can build out a complete sales team to replace myself. But I've found that the best type of person is a founder type individual who can see all of those things very quickly and then present a solution. It's also about how you talk, and we've actually discussed this, where I said there's an unspoken, non-relationship, but like a camaraderie between other entrepreneurs where you just get it. You know what they've been through, you understand their pain points, and you have a level of respect for one another that non-business owners don't get. It's like an exclusive club. We just know, and especially if you've been through the different stages of growing a business, you can immediately relate to their certain pain points.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding would be a great way of describing that. So when I was looking for people and to build a team, it just made sense to me that hiring another founder type person to take on like a head of business development role was another founder. And so that's what we did. We acquired another agency last year, and that founder there, John T, is now taken on our head of business development. So building out a sales team and a process. So it's having a sales process and then measuring the data on that. The data is so important. So we have a really great CRM setup. And from that data, the insights that we can derive enable us to make very strategic and informed decisions, which are very, we're no longer acting blind. We know where the money's coming from and how to then target it. And that can inform our strategies and what we do next.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
Yeah. So let's just say, for example, and this is a discussion we had last week, right? Which was, we have a pitching process and we have a number of inquiries that come through. And so in order to work out how many inquiries we roughly want to have or handle in a month, to generate the revenue we want to target. So I said earlier, we were on 25 mil and we want to increase by 30% this year. In order to do that, because we now have the historical data, we know what our rough conversion rate is. So we know that for every phone call or email consultation that we have or inquiry that comes in, we know that on average, 1 in 3 of those clients will convert to a project. So we've got a 33% conversion rate for every.
That's high. That's very high.
we try because we qualify our clients as well. We don't just
Sure.
we also like we weed out a lot of riffraff.
So so 1 in 3 from first meeting, right?
From first meeting
from first meeting becomes a paid for engagement.
Yeah, well, no, from first meeting, from 33% from initial inquiry. So
oh wow,
filling out a form.
that is really high.
Yeah, it gets higher from a meeting. We've got that, but
I'd hope so.
But we have that data, right?
Yeah,
and we know how often we need to follow up with emails. We know how many meetings it'll take. We know the average duration of like how long it takes to convert a client. So it roughly takes us about a month of negotiations and things. So it's not we can't just get a ton of clients tomorrow. We know that we have at least a month rolling period. And so this data that we have now, because we've been tracking that so accurately for the last 2 years, enables us to make informed decisions on how we're going to reach our new target. And that was that's different to how we were working when we started out, which was, inquiries came in, let's handle them and see what happens. And hopefully we hit our targets. Well, not targets, we didn't have targets. We just got projects, did the work, and then measured it retroactively. Now we're trying to forecast and see what the revenue will be and whether or not that is on track to hit our target, because we've set a target, which is just a more strategic way of working compared to what we did historically.
But I think the point is like you've been measuring this for long enough that you've got the data that cannot be predicted, right? Because you've got a good enough sample size that it can actually be generalized off of.
Exactly.
So talk to me through that sales process. What I want to know is the fact that you, at the point of you get an inquiry in, and 1 in 3 is going to be converted. I think that's way higher than what I've heard generally people being able to convert, because that for you is a qualified lead kind of coming into your sales process, and then once it's a qualified lead, 1 in 3, that's super high. What did you like really learn and get right in your sales process to be able to make that conversion work? I guess maybe for me to ask you a question another way, how did you get it from like 1 in 10 or whatever it might have been and cut that down to the point that it's now 1 in 3?
The process of that sales journey was the thing that changed the most was really selling the vision, not just a product. So what I used to do when somebody would come to us, I used to think that it was always based on price. It was like, what's the cheapest price that I can put together to build a website that they will say yes to? And what we realized was, or not that we realized, what we found was a far more impactful way, and also got a much bigger ticket at the end of the day, was this is the problem you want to solve. This is the optimal solution to solve that problem. Or if you want to get here, this is the path to that, not what you can afford right now. And that narrative shift and that change in thinking was very impactful in the way that our projects then converted, but also on the success of what we were selling. So instead of saying, so client comes along, they go, we want a website. And I go, okay, here's your website. This is how much a website costs. I start with, why do you want a website? What are the problems that you're trying to solve? Oh, okay. You're trying to increase your revenue to this thing. You want to build an online store, and you want to hit a target of, like 1 million in sales a month. Okay. Well, to get there, first thing, we need to start with your brand, because you don't have a brand. If we just go build a website for you now, it's going to be hard to design that website, because we don't know who your brand is. We don't know what you're selling. Maybe you have a cool product, but we need a bit more than that to market that effectively. So let's start with your branding. Then we scope out what you need from just the functional standpoint to build a nice e-commerce website. And then you go, okay, cool. Now you've got your website, but how do you get your customers? Okay, well, you need to pair that now with some kind of traffic acquisition strategy, whether that be paid ads or SEO or social media marketing, whatever it's going to be, you need that. And we now position that entire journey, that start, grow, thrive model from the beginning, which also then ensures that our ticket size is bigger. It also ensures that the client knows what they're in for, and they also have a vision to buy into. They can see the whole journey from the initial proposal rather than just line item website, which is a far improved sales process.
Right.
And that change of that messaging and that narrative is what skyrocketed the conversion rate and the project value, because we're selling a journey, not a product.
Well, it's you're being that trusted partner to begin with, and it's that first piece of trust that you build around, like, okay, like, you know what we do, otherwise you wouldn't have put an inquiry in, right? Like, where do you want to get to? Like, let's actually just have a conversation, whether it's us or not. Like, please be us, but like, whether it's us or not, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What do you need in order to get there? It's like, listen, we need a bit of a reality check quickly, because it's like, it's actually, in order to achieve that, you need a lot more, but this is also why. Right. And it's like, okay, cool. And let's break it down in terms of what we can realistically start with.
Yeah. Also, the big thing is selling the right. So also we can tell the client whether or not they're going to succeed, whether or not they are willing to invest the right resources. So sometimes a client will come along and they want to achieve a whole bunch of deliverables. And we say, okay, cool. If you want to achieve those deliverables, to do that properly, we need to charge this. Whereas what we used to do is adjust our pricing to just win the project. We negotiate, but now we just don't compromise. We say, if you want to do this properly, here's what we need to do. And that ensures that they succeed as well. Otherwise, what could have happened was we take on the project, we don't have enough budget to deliver on their vision or their goals. And then everyone's kind of unhappy at the end of the day.
But over and above, and more importantly to the money, is, your team, the people you have, the culture, and the way that you truly just the people you have working within your organization. If you have great people, you can have a great business. If you've got not great people, your business is going to struggle. And you can't have some great and some not great, because the ungreat people, the weak people are going to pull the rest down. And yes, you've done a lot of development and training and skills and those kind of things, and that's fantastic. But the general idea and the general principle is you've got to be driven, motivated, and have initiative in terms of what one's looking for. And, when we hire at Sealand, it's an element of personality and performance. And you can't just be an expert in what you're doing, but have no personality or have the wrong personality. It's more so that you can have an incredible personality and you can be pretty good at what you do. Like, the personality is such an important part of the people component. But when we look at Sealand and in terms of talent and new talent, is very much this element of personality and performance, which is considered. And so that speaks to the importance of people.
Sorry, before we continue, this is a tangent, but I love it, because now I want to go practically in how you do it. Because I mean, like, you're beyond 100 people now in terms of like the size of the business. So you've clearly gotten this right. And I think a lot of founders, no one needs to be convinced of the importance of having as many A players in your business as possible. Right. But I think the point of outside of our intuition of who we can pick, which can sometimes be wrong when it comes to hiring, how have you managed to really structure and systematize approach towards hiring to ensure that you're getting those A players? I mean, you mentioned personality, performance, but
well,
like,
it takes time. It certainly took time. We didn't start off with the ability to hire A players. We tried our best, but that, only in the last few years we've gotten to a point where we've actually been able to afford to hire experienced people which have skills within the area in which we're hiring for. The personality component hasn't been a challenge, but the in the beginning, we had to hire good generalists and ideally try find young people who believed in what we were doing and they wanted to be there for this potential of what it's going to become. And that's fantastic. But the more you realize, the more that we continue, the realization of experienced people really makes just, it makes the journey not easier, but you certainly are shortening the time frame in which you're succeeding at what you're doing because they've got the experience, they've done it before, they know the systems, they know how things are done, as opposed to somebody who has the initiative and the personality, but they're figuring it out. And it's good to have a combination of both, but the experience is critical. And something that my business partner has shown me now is when sometimes we're hiring new people and the cost is something which I'm not used to paying when it comes to experienced people. You always make it back when you've got the right people. They pay for themselves and more over and over. And we really are finding the value in investing into good people. What it just does, it professionalizes the team, the work ethic, the culture, the performance. Everything is improved and so much better. And it's certainly something which, as our journey has continued, and I haven't been involved in big businesses, and not to see that as a big business, but it's a growing business. And for me, it's my first time growing and being involved in a business of this scale. But I'm truly seeing the value in people as one of the most important components in building a successful brand and business. Is highly, highly important in choosing the right people. You've got to look for A players, but that A player in Sealand mind is an element of their personality and the individual they are. So we look for a Sealander at heart, plus somebody who comes with experience and somebody who's knowledgeable in what they're doing.
Yeah. Now, I've mentioned this before. It's like, I like to think of the talent equation as talent is equal to competence multiplied by commitment multiplied by contribution. So competence is how well you can do the job. Commitment is how committed you are to this organization, its goals, and its philosophy. And contribution is how much of a contribution do I feel like my job makes to a community or a cause that I care about, right? And so when you're talking about the Sealanders, it's very much like, are you going to feel that sense of contribution and commitment to what it is that we're doing? And then the competence side of things is like how well you can do the job. And
yeah, the commitment component is massive in terms of in what Sealand stands for. And as an entity, it stands for doing good and, business for good, where we support organizations which are doing fantastic work into community and ocean preservation and building product which is responsible and sustainably material sourced, produced and high quality. Like, we certainly attract a different wave and an incredible talent pool who wants to be a part of an organization that is doing business that way. And I think that more and more, the way that the world is moving, we're seeing more and more people interested in working in that type of business. And therefore, their contribution is beyond just a paycheck at the end of the month. It's something which they believe in and they're passionate in. And if you believe and you're passionate about what you do, in some ways, it's like it goes beyond work. And like, are you working or are you just doing what you absolutely love doing? And if you're doing what you absolutely love doing, you'll give so much more and you'll just do a far superior job at it. So we always try to look at it like that.
100%. Yeah, I think that the simplicity of it for me is getting someone to care and making sure that they're in the right environments and that they care and they feel cared for is very much that. But I think before we go down a talent rabbit hole, the simplicity of what it is that you've also said, also really like, where is that as long as they're a right fit for the business and a right fit for the role, you get what you pay for, right? And like, that's a different element of scale in terms of the fact that like hiring the right people and really paying top dollar gets you good quality, because it really is you know an A player when you work with them and you see them, and it changes the game. And I imagine it's changed the game for you.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, my first time in growing a business and growing a brand. Jasper was original as a sole prop. It was just me. So I was only as good as I was, and I was only earning when I was working. Whereas now, this idea of building a brand, which is, we're about 100 people strong now internally. And then we have outsourced partners. We've got production lines dedicated to us with probably another 30, 40 people. And the realization of good people is absolutely critical.
Couldn't agree more. All right, if you've made it all the way to the end, you've probably already heard me talk about the founder roadmap earlier in the episode. But if you haven't taken the 15 minutes to do it yet, let me remind you why it's worth doing. I built the founder roadmap just for you. The people who show up, think deeply, and genuinely care about building better businesses. It's not a marketing trick. There's no sign up. There's no email request. I'm not doing this to grow a list. I'm doing this because you've invested your time into the founder files. So I want to invest what I've learned back into you. The roadmap pulls from 120 plus episodes of the podcast and insights from working with over 150 founders. So in 15 minutes, it helps you see exactly where your business is leaking time, energy, and money, how ready you are to scale, and what to focus on next. So if the podcast has helped you think differently, this will help you act differently, and hopefully build a business that doesn't fall apart the moment you take a holiday. Links in the description. Take 15 minutes and give it a go. I think you'll be glad you did.